it's really, once you start letting go of some of this pain that's down there and you feel it and you start going through this process, it's like there's these markers where you start to feel better. And, maybe at stage 1, it's like, wow, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm actually starting to feel like life is worth living. And then maybe phase 2 is like, oh, like not only is life worth living, but like I'm starting to actually have friends and have fun in my life. And maybe it's even beyond that, it's like life is good. I'm actually happy consistently. At any of those phases, there's always this thought or temptation of getting complacent. Like, oh, I'm way better than where I was. And so like, I'm good for now. Because people want to believe that they're done after a year, 6 months or whatever. But like, have I actually had like an intuitive confirmation that it is finished?
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
Dane, bless Ernest's soul. He gave it his all and his neck was given out. So
R.I.P.
It's later, Ernest. So it's me and you, man. I want to chat more about relationships and kind of have you chime in, man, whenever you want.
Cool.
So more questions. These ones were a lot about relationships. So why does my partner constantly feel like I'm not doing enough in the relationship when I am investing a lot? Why does my partner constantly feel like I'm not doing enough in the relationship when I'm investing a lot? This is like such a common, relatable, I hear this all the time, and this can potentially create a lot of conflict. The first thing that comes to my mind is, are you fulfilling, are you investing in the relationship in the way that your partner does feel loved? So this goes back to the whole love languages, where my love language is like physical touch mostly, but my partner's is acts of service. So I'm putting all this effort into like touch her and to like rub her back. And she might appreciate that to some degree, but the way that she feels the most loved is when I like surprise her and like clean the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like,
gosh, that's so wise.
Well, it's hard. This is what's, I mean, a lot of people are familiar with the love languages. If you're not, there's some good stuff in there. One of the valuable points that it makes is like the way that you feel loved is often how you're automatically programmed to give it. So I feel the most loved by physical touch. That's my nature, is just to...
You just kind of mirror what you would want.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So this is, it works if it's the same, obviously, but this is why people feel like they're investing a lot. And then, and it can be a cause of a lot of conflict and frustration. So looking into love languages is really good. Another relationship question that I thought was pretty good is, what is my responsibility to have a healthy relationship? Like, I want to have a relationship. What is my responsibility? Dane, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, man.
Yeah. Did you have anything else that you wanted to preempt?
I always have thoughts on everything. So.
Or no, like preempt the question or whatever.
No, I think I'm not really sure the nature and what they're asking, but like, yeah, I want to have healthy relationships. Like, what's my responsibility to be able to do that?
I mean, it goes back to what's been spoken about a lot, which is you really are you are the one who's responsible. It goes back to the idea that you're responsible for your own like happiness and fulfillment
and emotions. Yeah.
And that comes down to how much are you investing in that happiness? So are you putting time aside for yourself to develop yourself? And I think generally speaking, your spouse will either notice that and follow, or they'll maybe notice that and like if there's like resentment, that's a pretty bad sign.
Yeah, those are good thoughts, man. I
don't take it as gospel, but it's just my thoughts.
No, I think that's definitely truth. So what is my responsibility to have a healthy relationship, to have healthy relationships? My responsibility is to take responsibility first and to communicate out of honesty and in a direct way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think those three things are good, important. So this goes along with what you're saying. They're really important keys, because if I'm really committed to take responsibility for my weaknesses first without blaming someone else, and I'm honest about how I feel, and I'm direct, and I do that in a kind way. What I love about this is based on how somebody responds to that, that actually tells us everything we need to know about what the relationship is meant to be like. What's really beautiful is like, if the only thing that we paid attention to in our relationships is how people responded to us, if I'm taking responsibility, if I'm being open, if I'm being like direct and doing that in a kind of way, if the only thing I pay attention to how somebody responds, that would tell me pretty much everything I need to know about what the relationship is meant to be like. Okay. So let's give an example. Let's say someone's in a dating relationship, and let's say that the boyfriend has a concern because the girlfriend is hanging out with other guys. So he has to honestly look at himself first and say, hey, am I playing any role in this? Okay. And then he needs to intentionally communicate out of kindness and in a direct way, like, hey, like, this is kind of hurtful that this is happening. I'm hoping that we can figure this out. If there's anything I can do to help, I want to know that. But if the girlfriend responds like not good, and she says like, this is your problem, like there's nothing wrong with me having guy friends, like da 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 da. This is what Kimberly talked about in like, that person isn't like holding, what Kimberly talked about is that they're not really holding your heart. They're not really like care. Yeah. Like, that's not a good response. That means something about what the relationship is meant to be like.
Well, it should be obvious. And the reason I didn't say this first was because it feels like the obvious, but I mean, really successful relationships very simply come down to caring for the other person enough to, I don't want to use the term make them happy, but it's just being considerate. It's just like any relationship, like you're being considerate of the other person's wants.
Yeah. Yep.
You're considering their happiness, not in a way that you feel like that's like the codependency where you feel like responsible for each other's happiness, but just simply there's a genuine concern. I like that term of like, you have their heart in your hands. And it's up to you to squash it or to like be gentle, you know?
Yeah, that's good, man. It's been really eye-opening to me because this goes back to this kind of goes back to like a buzzword that is common right now, which is like boundaries. Like, okay, what kind of boundaries do I need to have in my relationship? The best way to set a boundary or to know what your boundaries, how do I know what kind of boundaries I need in a relationship? I'm being open, I'm being honest, and I'm communicating that in a kind way. How somebody responds to that, it tells me what boundary I need. I'm not trying to intellectually figure it out and have all this weight on me. I'm like going to the source, which is the relationship, and I'm being honest and open and doing that in a kind way. How someone responds to that, it tells me. So I think my main point is just like, responses are so powerful to pay attention to in our relationships. We should really pay close attention to how people respond And that gives us a lot of understanding. So the other question it leads to is, what are some misunderstandings that people have about setting boundaries in relationships? What are some misunderstandings that people have about setting boundaries in relationships? It goes right along with what we've been saying. Is the biggest misunderstanding people have, I think, is that they have to intellectually figure it out without paying attention to the responses of other people. They take on this burden, and it's this confusion because it's really difficult to have clarity about what to do in a relationship unless you have enough responses from the other person. For example, it's probably not right to leave a relationship unless there's multiple negative responses about you feeling hurt in the relationship. That means something. So it's like this unique non-communicative fear thing that people have. It's like a fear thing. It's like, I don't want to share how I really feel because I don't not want it to go well. Well, it's like the only way you're going to know if it's right is if you share how you really feel, And so it's just interesting. People wrestle with this, and it's almost interesting as a therapist. It's like 9 times out of 10, the answer is like, hey, well, have you talked to the other person about how you're feeling, or have you just told me? Okay. It's just interesting.
Have you said these things to them?
Yeah, exactly. What are some ways that people unintentionally avoid their emotions? What are some ways that people unintentionally avoid their emotions? One of the biggest things that I've noticed is that as soon as something difficult happens, someone might have a very quick response to be positive about it. For example, my sister just died, and I'm trying to be this positive, uplifting person. And so as soon as I have this painful thing happen, I might really quickly go to oh, it'll be okay. Or things like this always get better with time. Or, I have the support of my friends, and so and I'm going to Lake Powell this weekend. And so I'll be happy then, Positivity is a weapon that the ego or Satan uses you to get you to avoid the pain. So positivity in this example is really, really unhealthy, because anything that's used to avoid the pain and not go down there and feel it and actually heal from it is not coming from a good place. And so it's really interesting. In the name of positivity, people try to
mask.
Exactly. They think it's really good because they're being positive. I personally am not a fan of positivity. I think it's fake, and it's often used in an inauthentic. It's kind of inauthentic. And so,
is there a difference between, if I may,
please? Is there a difference
between the half positivity and the half glass empty, half full?
Yeah, I think when pain is on the table,
I guess hope is glass half full. Hope is different than positivity. I guess that's answering my own question, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not about, I think this is it's not about necessarily being positive or negative. We're talking specifically about avoiding emotions or pain, so it's not about being
intentional kind of masking of it.
Yeah. It's not about being positive or negative. It's just about being honest,
running away from problems.
Yeah. We just want you to be honest. Oh, my sister, this is really sad. That's just the honesty. And so that's okay. And that's good. Take time to feel that. And then the hope or the positivity will emerge from a place after you feel it, if you seek it. Mm-hmm. It's just more authentic. It's deeper, Yeah, let's wrap up with this, man. Maybe 2 quick things as we wrap up. Last question on the whole healing, to build off what we talked about, is what are some limitations that people do put on their healing? What limitations do people put on their healing? It's really once you start letting go of some of this pain that's down there and you feel it and you start going through this process, it's like there's these markers where you start to feel better. And, maybe at stage 1, it's like, wow, I'm not depressed anymore. I'm actually starting to feel like life is worth living. And then maybe phase 2 is like, oh, like not only is life worth living, but like I'm starting to actually have friends and have fun in my life. And maybe it's even beyond that, it's like life is good. I'm actually happy consistently. At any of those phases, there's always this thought or temptation of getting complacent. Like, oh, I'm way better than where I was. And so like, I'm good for now. When it takes a true, sincere seeker to see it all the way through and to get the full payout of letting go, which is not only am I letting go of the pain, but I'm replacing it with joy and forgiveness and gratitude and some of these things that we've been talking about today. So I guess my main point on that is like, it's the journey can take years, and we're going to have a really cool guest on next episode. His healing journey, like focused healing journey, was like 10 years long. And there was moments where he was like, I guess this is as good as I can feel. Or I guess this is like, I just have to accept that this is just kind of how it is, because he put so much into it. And his story is such a beautiful example of like just continuing to go to get the full payout. And it brings up the question, how do I know when I have experienced the full payout? People ask me this a lot in therapy, like, Corey, how are we going to know when like the healing journey is done or when the letting go process is done? It's easier in therapy because it's like, I say something like, we will both know. But there is kind of like a spiritual, intuitive, like it's done. When we have James on next week, this is going to be a beautiful question for him, but I would say, not to rush the answer, there is a spiritual knowing that it's done. And then there is all the emotional signals, like there's nothing coming up for me anymore. I've never thought I could experience this much fulfillment. Yeah. So it's kind of a hard question, because when it's, in order to get to that point, not only are you on an emotional path, but you're also on a spiritual path. And so you do just kind of know spiritually.
Do you feel like it's part of it is this just simply almost like waking up in the morning feeling lighter, or feeling like a drive, that there's like a kind of a new purpose?
For sure. And what's cool about what you're saying is people can feel that along the way. They get glimpses of the wonderful land, along the way. That's what keeps us going. From a more like therapy or standpoint, I would say, like, if you've had strong emotional responses or patterns, how, like, have you, like, a lot of times it comes back to parents too. It's like, have I felt what I've needed to as far as the impact of my parents? Have I gone and then have I really been able to see the gifts that have come from that? And then have I taken the action I needed to? Maybe that includes talking to them. And there's that's something that's always on my radar when when they embark on this journey. It's like, is the parent thing stays in the back of my mind often, because it's often the root of much of that. But and I'm totally supportive of people being like, hey, like, I'm feeling so happy, I'm feeling so good, like I want to see how things go. It's like, cool. Like, yeah, like pay attention to how you're feeling, stay connected spiritually, and you're going to know what else is needed, So I think if you're not seeing a therapist, that's a really, like, really relish and enjoy these like glimpses of the wonderful land and these feeling lighter and better, but try not to say you're done until, I guess what I think, to wrap all this up, it's like, don't just believe that you're done. Like, because people want to believe that they're done after a year or 6 months or whatever. But like, have I actually had like an intuitive confirmation that it is finished? I think that's the best way to say it. And that's hard because that can take years, like I said. I think a really important message that I want to convey is that if you're going to take on this burden of trying to become more whole as your whole self, the change is meant to be complete and significant. It's meant to. This is what it's talked about in the Bible, where it says, "Come now and let us reason together. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool." So it's not just, so we talked about how a good definition for sin is like missing the mark. You know, if we've missed the mark in our life because of our programming or how we were trained or whatever, and that's a pattern, that change is meant to be like complete and significant. Like, that's not just a Christian belief. This is a belief in almost all spiritual teachings, especially in Buddhism. Enlightenment, achieving enlightenment, that's a pretty significant change and transformation from not being enlightened, you know? So there is this, yeah. So let's finish up with this. What is one of the best ways I can cultivate more love in my relationship? There's this really beautiful story in the Bible, in the Christ story. So as Christ enters this certain village, there was 10 men that were lepers, which stood afar off. And I just want to say the term leper in the Bible, what is the modern day leper? I believe a modern day leper is not just the physical sicknesses that people have, like maybe it was back then. Dane?
I was going to say that in a different way, that it's people who are just seeking for happiness in all the wrong places.
Yep. And in this case, I think I think the modern day leper is people that really suffer a lot in silence. These are the modern day lepers. Okay, so there's 10 of these that come to the Savior, and they lift up their voices and say, "Jesus, have mercy on us." And when he saw them, he said, "Go and show yourselves unto the priests, and you will be healed," or cleansed is what he says. So they all leave, and on their way to go show themselves to the priests, they were all healed of their leprosy. And then only one of them came back to Jesus, and he said, and so one of them saw that he was healed, and he turned back to go to Jesus, and he fell down at his feet on his face, giving him thanks. And then Jesus, this is the powerful part. And Jesus answered and said, "Were there not 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? And what's interesting is, what's powerful about this story is, this is going to have to do with the question, what is the best way I can cultivate more love in my relationship? This man recognized that he was healed on his way, and then he turned back to the source. And Jesus, he already knew that all 10 of them were healed. He already knew this. And so why did he ask the question? Were there not 10 of you? Where's the other 9? He's the one that healed them. He already knew. So why was he asking that question?
It's like he's full of rhetorical questions.
I think it's just a powerful, I think there's a few things that came to mind in this story as I was reflecting on it. One, it just goes to show how rare gratitude truly is. And more importantly, how rare it is now that people actually express gratitude. Like, how often is that happening? Maybe it's only happening 10% of the time, like in this story, maybe less. I think this is the powerful part. Why did Jesus say this? Well, he was trying to teach an important lesson, that healing, this is what I believe part of the lesson is, that healing without a relationship, without connection, healing without connection or relationship can still leave us feeling distant. These other 9, they were healed, but how distant did they end up in this symbolism? They end up being very distant from,
the one who
connection or source or whatever, the symbolism. And so being healed and letting go and these miracles that happen in our life, it's not just meant for us. It is meant to then develop this gratitude and connection and relationships. So it's just a powerful story, I think, about what is one of the best things that we can do right now to cultivate more love in our relationships. It's really trying to be intentional about noticing how our partner or how our relationships are benefiting us, and then sending that text, making the phone call, sending the email, whatever it is. People love us more when we express our love to them. So,
like the highest form of noticing someone.
Yeah. Well, we talk so much about how people just do not feel seen and they don't feel understood. And I think it's a beautiful thing in life to search for. How are people helping me in my life? Like taking time to reflect on this, like how are people benefiting me? How are people like reaching out? It's everywhere and it's all the time. So
if you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.